On this episode of ResiWeek, work from home audio sucks, Control 4 supports OvrC, and Siri is working locally. All this and more on this episode of ResiWeek.
The network for the AV industry.
What are you listening to?
This
is AV.
This
is AVNation.
This is AVNation.
This is ResiWeek, episode 279, Sonic Mediocrity.
Support for AVNation is brought to you by Chief, the global leader in commercial AV mounting solutions.
Welcome to this episode of ResiWeek. This is your weekly roundup of all the latest news and stories for the residential AV industry. I'm your host, Matt D. Scott for AVNation.tv, and this week I'm pleased to be joined by three of my closest friends, including one who just didn't even show up. That's Joe Whitaker. He skipped on us today and won't even text me back. So I'm just calling him out right off the top. It's done. Then we have Mr. Seth Johnson. He is a software development manager at Blackwire Design. How you doing, Seth?
Doing well. How are you doing, Matt?
I'm doing fantastic. Then we have Peter Aylett. He is a partner at HTE. How you doing, Peter?
Excellent, Matt. Very good, thank you.
Thank you both for joining us today. And Joe, you're not here, man. What's going on? It's rough. Gentlemen, let's kick this off with a story that comes to us from CE Pro. An EPOS study finds that work-from-home audio needs vast improvement. Their new Understanding Sound Experience report is showing that work-from-home audio is severely lacking and could impact the ability for workers to remain productive. Now, keep in mind, work-from-home is going to, Seth's already laughing at this, but work from home is going to continue for the foreseeable future. But a ray of hope comes in the way of, Apple's recent announcement by Mr. Tim Cook later last week that he's mandating all employees spend at least 3 days in the office. I believe it was like Monday, Wednesdays, and Thursdays, oddly enough. But anyways, we will continue to have work from home. Some of the findings from this report were that something like 19% of employees were experiencing stress from poor audio, 26% report misunderstandings, 68% polled said that they believe a quality audio experience will eliminate the need to repeat or clarify certain points in conversations. Seth, let me start with you. How do we address this, help clients with this? Is this even our bag to play with? Or is this one of those kind of like casual things that you just throw at a client as you're having a conversation?
No, I think we should. I mean, I've been preaching this for a long time now. We should lean into this. This should be what custom integrators, we have a room dedicated in-house usually for a theater, right? And these nice big C-level, houses. These are the nice homes we're going into for managers on up. If they're doing work from home, they should look and sound great. They shouldn't have anyone misunderstand what they say, that kind of thing. And that's an experience that we're like educated on exactly what to do here. We know how to treat sound. We know how microphones work. We know how speakers work. We know how feedback works. This is something that like ticks all the boxes as a custom integrator and a sound professional could be able to pull something like this off and put in the proper equipment that could be used for these types of situations. Now, obviously the software and all that stuff can get better, and there'd be all sorts of manufacturers that come out with kits and that kind of thing. But yeah, I think this is right in our wheelhouse. There's absolutely no reason that we should be passing up, an office. You talk about the theater, but also talk about the office. Like, you're working from home now. Let's put in some nice audio gear, some nice headphones, and some nice cameras to make sure you look and sound great on your business calls.
Peter, when you hear what Seth's talking about, I know that you spend a ton of time specifying and designing theater experiences and ensuring that those experiences are top notch. Is it time that we take, as an industry, that we take a more direct approach to, again, to Seth's point, that office that your homeowner has, that they might just have a random laptop in because they normally don't ever work from home. They just get away from the kids sometimes, which I might use my office for occasionally. Is it time, and how do you go about starting that conversation of, hey, you're in your office, let's actually set it up as an office?
Well, as an industry, I think we're curators of presence in a building. We deal with being present, and being present could be being present experiencing a movie. It could be being present sharing a beer over sport. It could be being present at a dining table having conversation. But absolutely, that whole concept of presence extends to working from home. I don't really know why it took what was probably an expensive and long study to tell us that people's audio just generally isn't very good. And this has to be a trend through all our lives in every aspect that we deal with in buildings, that gradually people's expectation of the quality of audio has just gone down and down and down and down and down. And if I'm having a conversation with someone on the street and I start doing this, well, the other person's probably going to go, but I can't hear you. But yet we put up with that same level of sonic mediocrity in home offices. I'm convinced that one of, a massive opportunity for our industry is in effect being the outsourced IT company in the home. Because IT people in corporate world, they don't really understand homes. They don't get let out much. They probably don't have all of the social and home integration skills that are necessary. But I think there's a massive opportunity to learn to speak the language of corporate IT and then be able to be that bridge. Because with all these people working in their homes, I don't think most corporate IT departments simply have the manpower to get out there and do all the work. That's not how they're structured. And when it comes to audio and video quality, well, hey, isn't that what we do? And given what I do now for a living, the thing I want to have a brief conversation about is acoustics. I hear so many conference calls, so many webinars delivered by someone who's probably sitting in a bathroom, or at least, a room with 6 hard tiled surfaces. And it's terrible. A little bit of acoustics can go a huge way when it comes to voice intelligibility. And I mentioned dining rooms. To me, dining rooms are not places for eating. Dining rooms are places for socializing. They're places for conversation. But how many of these architecturally fantastic buildings with lots of glass and lots of concrete and lots of tiles do you walk into, that dining room, once you have 3 or 4 people talking at the same time, is just a cacophony? We as an industry should be able to do something about that. And when it comes to working from home and improving audio, I'd say the number one thing we can do to improve audio is to simply improve the acoustics of the space if it's live. So yeah, massive opportunity.
Do you both think, or do either of you think that the realization that most of our audio is god awful from video conferencing, that has been the big thing that has made people realize that audio matters? Do you think that will have an inverse effect to cause people to recognize that they just need better audio in their homes in general? Or is it going to be a singular issue?
I think the general public are satisfied with mediocrity. If you take Apple AirPods, I mean, everyone who owns an Apple phone owns a pair of AirPods. I bought some AirPod Pros. I use them for about 2 days until I realise that the audio from them is quite frankly crap. And if I'm listening to someone on a webinar or on a conference, I've got a decent pair of really revealing monitors, active monitors on my desk. And I could have my eyes shut and someone come on that call and I'll go, yup, you're using AirPods. They have this sort of slightly compressed, slightly medium wave quality to them that just isn't particularly natural. And on a casual chat, sure, but when you're trying to be professional, I think our jobs as systems integrators, when we're dealing with working from home, is to build that working from home environment so that individual, when they're doing anything via electronic comms, just looks professional, sounds professional, gives that air of professionalism. And unfortunately, I don't think the majority of people have a clue what that is. I don't think the majority of people know what's possible, or even know how simple it can be, and not expensive, just to do a couple of really, really crucial, easy things. I've seen, Matt, you're using a posh microphone. I'm using a posh Shure microphone. They're not expensive, and they make a massive difference in terms of sound quality. Add that to a bit of acoustics. That's all you need to do.
Very good. All right, gentlemen, let's change topics for a moment. This comes to us from Residential Tech Today. Control 4 OS 3.2.2. It's a software update that fully supports the OvrC ecosystem, or OvrC Pro ecosystem. Sorry, I always had a to that one, as Seth is nodding his head going, Matt.
I did the same thing on my podcast. It's such a, yeah.
It should be. It should be OvrC. I'm just throwing it out there to the marketing folks over at Snap. All right, gentlemen. This is honestly a long-awaited and very cool aspect. Peter, let me start with you on this. Is this a huge upsell for C4, or is this just a evolutionary step for them?
I'll preface my comments by saying I'm in by no means, shape or form a Control 4 expert, but I think anything that puts the power in an integrator's hand to sell maintenance contracts and this is the key, to be proactive about their servicing. I think customers generally with their homes, and even with their cars, the expectation is that something breaks and then you call someone to fix it. Any opportunity where proactively an integrator with a customer with a maintenance contract can give them a call, send them a message, whatever the platform, and say, we've just noticed this is about to fail, or you might not have noticed, but this has failed. We'd like to arrange an appointment to come along and fix it. That's golden. That's absolutely golden. And one of the things that it's obvious that Snap are doing with all their acquisitions is creating a much more integrated ecosystem. They have the opportunity to take all those brands and create an ecosystem that is integrated, and OvrC is an absolutely golden opportunity for integrators to get those recurring revenue maintenance contracts.
Yeah, very good. Seth, I know you follow C4 fairly closely. As you mentioned, you covered it already on your podcast. When you see this, I get excited about pretty much the points that Peter hit, right? The ability to be proactive, the ability to get some information without rolling a truck. What I'm curious about, though, having used OvrC for some products in my own company and some things that we follow and monitor with it, we like it from the troubleshooting standpoint. I get nervous when I see remote access and remote troubleshooting, etc., when it gets into programming. Is this one of those things where all of a sudden, now that OvrC is available for C4 and all of their products, all their controllers, etc., do you think that is going to potentially cause a problem for remote programming over that? Is this something where dealers should be using it for information, for data, but still planning to do a lot of their changes on site?
I don't think that aspect of what Control 4 has done is going to change it. You've been able to dial in, so to speak, and make updates and changes pretty much since the beginning of their product line. I agree with Peter. Like, this is on top of the reoccurring stuff. Like, this is tooling, and in this industry, as a service technician who's being paid money to show up or to be around when something goes wrong, they're being paid to know what is wrong with the system. It's sometimes very difficult to know that remotely, and with something like because OvrC, we called it for years, we called it OvrC. I don't know why, but I had no idea what it was called. So with something like this in place, you have the tooling, you have the tools available to get in there, figure out what the problem is, do your diagnostics, and either fix the problem remotely. Be great if you could do that without rolling the truck, but know what you're walking into when you get to the client's house. That can be that could be the difference between a good and bad Friday afternoon, and a good and bad weekend after that.
Yeah, very true. All right, gentlemen, let's change topics once again. This comes to us from TheVerge.com. Apple is introducing Siri for third-party devices, as well as a couple other really, really cool things. Now, like a consumer website, they're kind of bearing the lead there. Yes, they are enabling Siri for third-party devices. That is cool. They're showing it on an Ecobee, as well as a couple other products. But more importantly, what they are doing with Siri is they are allowing a large portion of the Siri infrastructure to happen on your device. It's not going to a server. It's staying on your device, which is a huge deal. This was, as I mentioned, announced at WWDC, their keynote presentation. They also introduced a couple other cool things called Home Keys, which allows you to remotely lock and unlock doors, supported through their Wallet app. The Apple Mini or HomePod Mini is doing some other cool things as well. Seth, let's talk for a second about the voice control aspect of this, the Siri aspect. Apple has been at least touting the privacy flag for quite a while. Right now, their big commercial set is all about privacy. Data trackers, that was the big iOS release that happened, I think, 2 weeks ago, where they're not only allowing you to greatly increase the level of which control you have over which apps are tracking you and how, but it's downright showing you directly how they're doing it. Now that they're doing Siri on device, what does that mean from a privacy standpoint? I
mean, it falls in line with what they've been trying to do, and bang on this privacy hammer that they've had. I think this kind of goes. This directly goes along with what Apple's all about these days, and it seems like this has just been a steady progression. Mm-hmm. Like we've had some events. I think they even mentioned this in the keynote. They've had some things you could do locally that were processed locally. This is just expanding that out and trying to do a whole lot more. So it'll be interesting to see, I guess, with Apple and Siri in particular. To me, it'd be interesting to see how well this actually works in practice. They can promise all they want, but if it doesn't process or misunderstands you on the phone, that's no better than it misunderstanding you in the cloud.
Such a rosy outlook on that one.
Well, I mean, they don't have the best track record, but I think they were the first to market with this type of integration, and then Amazon and Google came in and started leapfrogging them. I think they've got a little bit of catch up to do, and a lot of opinions like mine to come and overcome. And they probably can do it. I have no doubt that they have the brains and intelligent people there to do something like that. But I think it's great that you can process something locally. You don't have to figure out what somebody said. You can process locally, determine if it can make that command happen without the latency of going out to a server in the cloud, doing it there, and coming back. Mm-hmm. That's faster control. That's more responsive. That to most people, what they're going to see is I asked this thing to do it, and it did it almost instantly, and that's awesome.
I think what I find surprising is, and I'm not one to miss an opportunity to hate on Siri just a little bit, but I will say I've noticed over the last 6 months that the Alexas in my house are not necessarily any better. They seem to have the same idiosyncrasies where you ask what should be a simple and honestly commonly repeated question, and she still seems to mess it up. Peter, you brought one aspect of this to my attention, which I had not seen, in the fact that this will even function when your phone is in airplane mode. Is this the push that the industry needs to at least try to be a little bit more transparent with what they're doing with your voice commands?
I think the industry has a duty to be transparent about what the connections are between the stuff in the home and the internet. How much of what is happening in the home is processed on the cloud, I think there should be full disclosure. And as part of that conversation, there needs to be a conversation with the client saying, right, here's the spectrum. At this end, everything's cloud processed, and you have this huge amount of functionality, this huge amount of AI. It's incredible, all this stuff that happens, but A, you're dependent on your internet connection, and B, there might be privacy concerns. To the other end of the spectrum where, nothing's cloud processed. Your DVR is local. There's no voice control. No, you've got all of your content local with physical media, and then to end up with that client somewhere on the spectrum. But when it comes to the whole Apple versus Google versus Amazon debate, it's really interesting because the fabulous Rich Green and I, for many years, have taught a course on design thinking at Expo and ISE. And the first part of design thinking is empathy, just building empathy with your clients. And empathy is all about asking really good questions. Answers are easy if you have really good questions. And one of the things that surprises me when we're going through the exercise is no one ever asks, can you tell me what phones you have? Because if I'm talking to an Apple user, I'm going to do my best to integrate Siri into their lives, because I don't want, as a user, for some things to be going, hey Siri, and for other things to be going, Alexa, and for other things to be going, hey Google. I don't want to remember which particular voice system does which particular thing. And I think we almost need to approach voice of not, hey, we've got these three competing systems, which one should we install? But to have that empathy conversation with a customer, to discover their obvious and hidden needs, and then to talk about functionality. What are the jobs voice is going to do? How is this actually going to make your life better? And I think, and if we're going to make it simple, I don't know about you, but I don't want voice fragmentation. I don't want saying one thing to one thing and another thing to another. I just want to issue a command and something happens. But certainly the more local processing that happens, I used to do a lot of work in the Middle East, and I'd say 80% of our clients were either royalty or gangsters. And royalty and gangsters have extreme privacy concerns. When it comes to a lot of the royalty, I remember one palace we did a project in that we set up a control system just for the cinema, and on the day of handover they turned all the Wi-Fi off. And it was, but this isn't going to work. And they said, well, no, that Wi-Fi gets turned off, and different Wi-Fi gets turned on that only a few authorized devices have access to. Oh, can this be an authorized device? No. So how are they going to control it? Well, we have people for that. So ultimately, people went into the rack room and pressed buttons. But this, that's an extreme privacy example. But reliability is a factor. I like things to be local. Privacy is a factor. I like things to be local. And as Seth very rightly said, latency is a factor. You press something, you want something to happen, you want it to be instant. So this progression to more computational stuff being done within the building, I think is fantastic.
Is that going to be a prevalent thing, though? Because I'm always aware, or try to be aware of a privacy concern, aware of what's going on. But when I talk to, half the people in the industry, let alone a general consumer, the convenience of Google or an Amazon Echo surpasses the need for privacy. So I have a couple of clients. I don't have royalty clients like yourself,
What about gangsters?
No comment. I might know some people in maple syrup. That is a gangster trade up here, my friend.
Right.
I do know that for some clients, privacy is a very important factor. I don't know if it's important enough for most clients to move that needle at all.
I mean, given how many people get hacked and use the same password on every website, so everything in their life gets hacked at the same time. The convenience as human beings, we like things to be have less friction to interact with them. So the convenience factor of these devices has been great. You can sit there and yell into the air and somebody will add something to your grocery list. But all of the privacy, I think we're just now learning all of the privacy issues that come along with that convenience. And it's a pendulum, right? Like, it's just going to swing back the other way, and eventually it'll find its center. But I think we still have some time. Maybe some of these things Apple and Google are doing are going to step over the line and be too far, and we'll come back to the middle somewhere. Maybe a new technology will come out and make this a whole lot easier for people to understand and interact with. But we'll eventually get there. We'll eventually get there where convenience and security do line up.
I did have a giggle earlier during the Apple keynote when they were talking about a feature where they will hide your physical location when someone sends you an email, so that when you open the email, it won't be able to track you. And I just thought of the irony that back in the day when mail was actually delivered to you, it would never get to you without an address. So I kind of found that a bit weird. But I think it's just up to us to have that privacy and security conversation with our clients, and just make them aware of exactly what's happening, and then, as Seth said, give them the choice. And the other thing is, we can do wonders with locking the hardware down. We can go a long way towards locking the software down.
We're supposed to do that?
Yeah.
Really?
But the biggest security risk in any network is the wetware. It's the users. Unless you're a corporate network and you so tie down what people can install and how things are configured. If my customer comes along with a computing device and connects it to the network, if they're a muppet, they are going to cause all hell to break loose, and there's nothing that we as integrators can do about it. So yeah, with all the will in the world, doesn't matter what we do, there are still going to be lots and lots and lots of security and privacy breaches because our clients don't know any better.
That is true. I will say, even in a lockdown commercial environment, you'd be amazed what a user can get into. It's depressing, really. All right, gentlemen, on that super bright note, we're going to leave it there. Thank you both so much for joining us. Peter, if people want to connect with you, learn more about HTE, where can they do that?
hte.design. And as an email address, it's peter@hte.design.
Will we know your location when you open that email?
I have a particular set of skills. I will find you. And I will sell you the finest cinema and media room acoustics known to humanity. So beware.
I love it. Mr. Johnson, thank you, sir, for joining us. If people want to connect with you, learn more about Blackwire Design, where can they do that?
You can head on over to blackwiredesigns.com. Check out all of the hardware and software that we offer.
Thanks for joining us. If you'd like to connect with me, you can find me on Twitter @MattDScott and pretty much every other social platform. But more importantly, please visit AVNation.tv, where you'll find this show as well as a wide variety of our other shows with all the verticals that we cover. When you visit the website, please take a moment to check out our supporters. We are extremely thankful for their support and ask that you check them out as well. Thanks again for watching. That's all the time we have for this episode of ResiWeek.